This is Angular 2 for Dummies. Now, if you ask me what is Angular, I will recommend you to stop this video and go to the 69th honeymoon with jQuery. This tutorial has 5 parts. In the first part, I will talk about 4 simple steps that anyone can do to create an Angular 2 application without knowing a damn thing. I will call this part resume driven development. In the second part, I will show the best architecture to create an Angular 2 application. We'll talk about the components and little bit about Angular CLI, and if needed, we will search something on the Google. That's why this part will be called Google driven development. In the third part, I will show you how to load data from the server and show it in the UI. Of course, being a developer, you will create an ugly UI, and that's why your manager will yell at you. Later, I will show you how to use material design to make UI fancier, and this part I will call manager yell driven development. In the fourth part, I will show how you create multiple routes, view components, and pass parameter in a route by spending all time in the weekends. And this part I will call no social life driven development. In the fifth part, I will show how you build, deploy, and run unit tests in an Angular 2 application. And if there is an issue in production, how you will spend all nights to chase a bug in production. That's why this part will be called production broken driven development. Let's start with resume driven development. The goal here is to give 4 simple steps that anyone can follow to create an Angular 2 application and then see it running in the browser. Before we start, make sure you have Node installed in your machine. In any case, if you don't have Node installed, just go to Google and search for Node download. And if you click on the first link, you will go to the Node website, and from there you would be able to download and install Node in your machine. One optional thing, if you want to use the same code editor that I would be using, feel free to download Visual Studio Code from code.visualstudio.com. Now we will simply go to Google and search for Angular CLI. And if you click on the first link, you will go to the GitHub page of Angular CLI. And if you scroll down, you will see the command that you need to run to install Angular CLI in your machine. Now we will open the command line for a poor developer who doesn't have a Mac. So the first step to create an Angular 2 application is to install Angular CLI in your machine. And to install the Angular CLI, we will follow exactly the same command written in the GitHub page. So we will type npm install z at angular/CLI and press enter. This will take few minutes to install Angular CLI in your machine. When the CLI installation is done, we will go to the GitHub page, and if we scroll little bit, you will see generating and serving an Angular project, and we will follow the next steps written here. So our second step is to create an Angular 2 project by using this command ng-new and then name of the project. So we will go back to the command line and type ng-new, give a name to our project, and we will give the name smartly so that it sounds like we are doing a serious development, like we are building an application for a big corporate or a bank. That's why we will name it as a Bangular Bank. And after that, we will press enter. It will take few minutes to create the application. When this is done, you will see project Bangular Bank successfully created. This is our second step. The third step is cd project name. Then we will type exactly the same thing, cd, and our project name is Bangular Bank. And by doing this, we will go inside the directory of the project that we just created. So third step is done, very simple. And the fourth and last step is to type ng-serve. We will do exactly the same thing, ng and then serve. We'll press enter. It will take few seconds, and when it is done, you would be able to go http localhost 4200 and see the application running. Now we will go to the browser and open localhost 4200, and we will see app works. It says app works. It doesn't say hello world. A true developer would not be happy to see app works. He wants to see hello world. So I will open the code editor. I have Visual Studio Code installed in this machine. In the Visual Studio Code, go to File and then Open Folder. From there, find the place where you have the Bangular Bank directory and then select folder. After that, Visual Studio Code will load your project here, and you will see a lot of files here. Ignore all of them. Just pay attention to the src folder, expand it, and then you will see bunch of other folder. Just pay attention to the app folder and then expand it, and you will see few other files, and we will just click on app.component.ts. And if you open the app.component.ts, you will see at the bottom of the page app works. Now we will go to the browser and put it on the right side and put the code editor to the left side. Now we will change this app works to our familiar hello world. So we will type hello Angululu baby, and then if we hit save, within a second you will see that browser will get loaded and you will see hello Angululu baby. That's all. Now you know 4 simple steps to create an Angular 2 application. The first step is to install Angular CLI by executing this command. Second step is to create a project. Third step to go inside the directory, and the final step is to hit ng-serve. So you are done with Angular 2. Now feel free to add Angular 2 in your resume. If you are a freelance developer or a consultant, you can also add Angular CLI and TypeScript in your resume. Now we'll talk about the second part of this tutorial, which is Google driven development. And in this part, we will talk about the best architecture for an Angular 2 application, how we can create and manage a component, how we can do different templating and binding. Before getting started, I want to tell you a secret that if you are interested to make a relationship with Angular 2, you should know that Angular 2 carries two stepchildren, and also you might have to deal with an unwanted stepdad called TypeScript. Don't worry much about these stepdad and stepchildren. In this tutorial, we have used Angular CLI to create Angular 2 application. If you go to the Visual Studio, you will see like we have a lot of files. Don't pay much attention on these. We just open the package.json, and you will see in this part the dependencies. You have bunch of module of Angular. Time to time we will import those or get those in our component, and these are two stepchild, the rxjs, zone.js, and here is the dev dependencies which you need just for the development purpose in your machine, and Angular CLI is one of them, and bunch of Jasmine and Karma to create and run unit test, and the last part is your stepdad TypeScript. In the folder structure, you have end-to-end testing. Don't have to much pay attention right now. And node modules, this is where all this module stays for your development purpose, and this is the main folder you have to go, which is the source code. Inside source you have seen the app component and few other files like assets, where you will have your SBCs or any other asset. This is the different environment related configuration if you need. This is the landing HTML or index.html, and most of the time we don't have to touch anything there, and few others about your central styles and the test, and few other configs that we don't need to worry much about right now. We will first create a component and then look into different pieces of a component. And to see how a component could be created, we will go to the GitHub page of Angular CLI, and after scrolling a little bit, you will see ng generate component, and you will give the name of the component or a short form which is like ngg. G stands for generate, and you will write component and the name of the component. So we will follow exactly the same thing by going to the command line interface. First we will press Ctrl C to terminate the current execution of the code, and then we will type ngg component, and name of the component will give circular. And if I press enter, it will create 4 files, updated 1 file. We will look into the update part little later. First, we will go to the Visual Studio Code. This is the circular folder, the component we have created. You can think of a component as a room in your house, and it has 4 pieces. The first part is CSS. That's why it's called circular.component.css. That means this is the style for circular component. This is like a painter guy who puts color on the wall or any other things. The second part is circular component.html, where all the structure layout of the room exists. This is like architect. The third part is unit test, is like a stepchild you don't care much about at the beginning, who might give you pain later. And the fourth part is circular.component.ts, which is the most powerful part of this component. You can think of it as your girlfriend who makes all the decision about your house. If you open CSS first, At the beginning it's empty, that means there is no style here. If you open the HTML file, you will have a simple paragraph tag which says circular works. We will skip the stepchild right now and we will go to the most powerful part of this component. If you look into this component, you will see at top we are importing two things from Angular core. We are importing the component so that we can create a component class here, and we are importing something called onInit. And here's some information about this component. What it says is selector app circular. App in front of it because it is under the app. And then circular is the name of your component. And then it says the template URL is component.html, which is this file, and this is component.css, which is the style. At the bottom of this file, you will see like export class circular component implements onInit. This is a circular component class that implements onInit from Angular core, and inside it you have the constructor of any class and then ng-onInit. This ng-onInit is an event hook that would be executed every time this class is initiated. There are few other event hook could be added to Angular component. If you want to know more about event hook, you can go to Google and search for Angular2 component lifecycle. And if you click on the first search result, you will go to the Angular document and there is bunch of other event hook. If you need it, you can spend your weekend to know more about them. We will go back to the component. Now we'll see the binding and templating, how this thing happens. Since this is a class, you could have properties here. I will make this property public and then I will name it as happy text. Happiest time for me is manager is on vacation. Now my goal is to display this property in the HTML. So what I will do, I will go to the HTML which has circular works. I will create another paragraph tag. The goal of this paragraph tag will be bind to the happy text property I have created. To make this binding happen, I have to do two curly braces. Inside this, I will write happy text, the property, and save it. Now I will run the code. So I will type ng-serve here and I will go to the browser. So I will do localhost 4200. I see hello Angular baby, but I don't see anything circular works or the happy text. To see it in the browser, what I have to do, I have to go to app.component.html because it's currently showing whatever in that HTML. So if I go there and I need to add circular component in this HTML because this is the opening HTML, I have to go to the circular component.ts and know the selector. This is the selector for this component. If I copy it and create an HTML tag in the app.component.html with this. So I will do app circular and create an HTML tag here. This is how we are using circular component here in the app.html. And now if we go to the browser, we will see circular works and manager is on vacation. Now the question is like why we need to add it in the app components, because of app.module.ts that we didn't talk about before. So app.module.ts is the gate of your house. So if you open the app.module.ts, you will see like bunch of import from Angular and import of two component. One is the app component that Angular CLI created, and second one is the circular component that you have created. And you see that you declare two things, app component and circular component. And below it there are few other things is imports. We don't need to worry about right now about that. Providers and bootstrap. So this bootstrap tells which component you will start with. Since this application is starting with app component, that's why it was showing app component as default. And if you want to add something in this app component, we have to put it in the app component.html file. That's what we did it here. That's why it shows manager is on vacation. If I add more HTML here, like I create an H3 and I write I am Jangululu, I am the partner of Angululu, save it, you will see this will get immediately reflected. And in this browser, this part is your app.component and this is your circular component. If we go back to the circular component.ts, we have seen ng on it. So in the initialization, we want to change the text. We want to change this text. That means we want to change the value of happy text. To access happy text, we have to write this dot happy text and we'll set values. And another happy moment for us would be manager is sick. If the manager isn't feeling very well, he would not be in office and we'd be happier. Now, if we go to the browser, we see manager is sick. So this is the simple way of binding. But if you want to bind to an event, for example, we want to create a button that will change the value of this happy text. So we will do here, create a button, and this button will have text, make me happier. So this will have a click handler. First, go to this component and create the click handler. We will create an event handler. We will name it make happier. And we will use the same approach to change happy text. So we will type this dot happy text. And the most happiest news for us is manager got fired. If I save it and if I go to the UI, this will not do anything because button doesn't have an event bind to this method we just created. So we will go to the HTML and we will create an event binding. The name of the event is click, and the method we want to bind we already created here. So we'll just copy make happier, and here we will paste it, and then we'll give curly braces. If we put the curly braces, then Angular knows this is a method execution. We will save it, and now we'll go to the browser. If you get here, you will see manager is sick. If you want make yourself more happier, you will click this button and you will see yay, manager got fired. The last binding we will look into is binding to a collection. Say for example, if I have a array of to-do list, so I will create a property and I will definitely make it public, and name of the property is my to-dos, and I will have a collection bunch of tasks here. So the first to do is wash coffee mug. Second to do is take a shower, and third to do is say hi to the new hire. And we will stick to these three tasks for now. In the UI, we will loop through these items and bind to a list. That's why here we will come and create an ordered list, and then we will have multiple list item, and this list item we will do star ng for, and inside this we will create a block variable let to do of my to do's, and then inside it we will put like curly braces to do, and then Angular will loop through all the items in the to do's and bind to the DOM. And if you go to the browser, you will see all the three items here. Like other items, if you go to the component and add a new item in your collection, shampoo, you're here, and if you save it, you come to the browser, you'll see like the browser reloaded and added a new to-do list for you. That's all about part 2 of this tutorial. We talked very high level of the architecture of an Angular 2 application. We talked about component, how you can create them, and then we talked about template binding and also how you can bind event to an Angular application. Let's start the third part of this tutorial, Manager's EL driven development. In this part, we will work with a realistic example where we will have a search box and you will be typing some text and have a button that you click and it will go to the server side and fetch some data from the server and display those search results in the UI. To use this, we will create a component, and we have seen how to create a component. So we will go to the command line API, terminate the current processing, create a component, ngg component, and we'll give it a name called search so that we can search in this component, and within a few seconds it will create a component as usual. And to see this component is working correctly, we will hit ng serve first, and then we will go to our app.component.html file where currently we are using app circular instead of this guy. So we'll get rid of this guy and we would like to add search component here. You will see in the folder you already have the search component, and if you open the component here you will see the selector app search. So we will copy this guy, and if we create the HTML tag, then we will save it and we have to go to the browser and we'll see search works. That's how we know that search component is currently getting displayed here. Our goal here to have a input text and a button. So let's do that in the search.component.html. We'll open it and get rid of this search works. We'll create an input tag. Under it, we will create a button. Text on the button is called search. If we save it, now go to the browser, you will see this get reloaded to a text box where you can type, and when this is fully functional, you would be able to click on the search and you will display the search result below this text box. To load data from the server, the best practice is to use a service. And if you are not familiar with a service is something like somebody provides some kind of service. That's why it's called service. For example, if you think of Amazon and you provide some instruction, maybe send some money, then it send the items to your home. That means they are providing a service and you give them some command. Since we are using Angular CLI for this tutorial, creating a service is super easy. We will go to the GitHub page of Angular CLI, and if we scroll little bit, you will see bunch of scaffold command, and one of them is service, and it's pretty similar to the one we are familiar with, ng service, and the name of the service. So we will go to the command line and we will stop current execution and we'll use this command ng service. We'd like to create this service inside a directory, so we will give the name of the directory and then we will provide name of the service. And in this example, I would like to use GitHub APIs to search users who have profile in GitHub. That's why I will create a folder called GitHub. Inside it, I will create a service with same name, GitHub. If I press enter, it will create two files and give me a warning. Created the service.spec, which is the test file, and it also created a service file, and there's a warning. The warning, you should pay a little attention in this time. It says service is generated but not provided. It must be provided to be used. So keep this in mind, and we will run ng-serve so that our code is always running. Now we will go to the Visual Studio Code, and if you scroll, you will see like a GitHub folder. Inside this, you have two files. One is the service, another one is the unit test. If you open the service, you will see you as usual have something from Angular core importing the injectable that's on top of your service class, and it has a plain constructor. To make an HTTP call, you have to import the HTTP module in your service. So we will use import, and this import would be from Angular. So we will type Angular and /HTTP, and then we want to import the HTTP. We will just type HTTP would be imported. Second thing we have to do, we have to create a property in this class so that we can use the HTTP module from any method we create in this class. So we will create a private HTTP, and then this would be type of HTTP. If you didn't saw this colon and then is some kind of name, this is declaring type by using the TypeScript. So if you are not familiar with TypeScript, I will recommend to Google TypeScript and spend some time about TypeScript. The goal of this service is to load data from the server. So we will create a method here called getUser, and first we will not return anything from here. For now, we will use a hard-coded search text. That's why we will create a constant search text, and we will set a value as JS. And then we will have the APIs for the server side. In this example, I will use GitHub APIs, where I can call an APIs by providing a search text, and API will return me all the user profiles which matches this name. We create a constant of URL, which is a link to the GitHub APIs, and it is HTTP and then api.github.com/search/users. And after that, we pass a query parameter q is equals to, and since we want to use this hard-coded text for now, we will add search text here. And after this, we need to use this HTTP property of this service, and we will do it by typing this.http, and then we will see multiple methods that HTTP can do. In our case right now, we will use the get and then pass this URL. After this, we will call the subscribe method, and inside this subscribe method we will use an input parameter res, which means response, and we will use the es6 arrow function. Inside this we will create a constant named data, and the value of data would be res.json. So what we are doing here, we are using HTTP to call these APIs, and then we are subscribing to the API call. When this is done, we are getting a response, and after getting the response, this is our callback function where we convert the response to a JSON and set it to a constant data. After that, we will console log this, so that we want to make sure that we are getting return from the APIs, and then we will return this to whoever is calling this. The next step is to call this method from the search component that we have created. So we will go to the search component, and the most powerful file in the search component is search.component.ts. We will get here, and if you remember, there was a warning when we created the GitHub service. It says that it's created but not provided. So we have to do the providing work here. First, we will import that service here, and I know that it is in the GitHub folder. So I will go to the GitHub folder and then get the GitHub service. And from this GitHub service, I want to import the GitHub service, which is very simple. And then you see on top of this search component, there are few metadata like the selector, template URL, and style URLs. I need to add one more here, so I will add a providers, and providers takes a collection, and we will provide GitHub service in it. So the providing part is done. The next part is to add a property through which we can use this GitHub service. And adding a property during construction of this class is very simple. We have done it before. We'll just create private, give it a name GitHub service, and the type of this service would be GitHub service. If you are not familiar with TypeScript, this might look little odd to you. This is just telling that the type, the strongly type of this property is GitHub service. So we will have access to this GitHub service. Next thing we will do, we will add a call to this GitHub service from this method. And what we will do, we will use this .github service and call this method getUser. For now, a quick way of checking whether our call to the service is working or not. Now, if we save this and go to the browser, and we will not see any visible changes, but if you open the dev tool and go to the console tab, you will see there is something is logged as object. If you expand this log, you will see total count 39,000, and it also have a collection of items. And if you expand this, you will see some people's GitHub profile where you will see some information about the user profile. So we are successfully making a call to the server and getting some data. Our next step would be to display this data in the website. We have to do few more things to show this data to the website. First, we need to go to the service and do some work in the service. So if you go to the GitHub service, right now this method does not return anything. So we have to return something, and to do the return, we have to take some help from the stepchild that your girlfriend Angular2 has, and that is rxjs. So we will import rxjs here, and we will load it from rxjs/rx. And from there, we will load something called observable, so that we can make this method observable. To return something from this method, we will use this method and we will type observable, and we want to observable of anything from this method. And you will see like the red squiggly line here because this method isn't returning any observable right now. We have to do two more changes here. Previously we have a subscribe here, that's why we were consuming the changes here. Now we want to move this subscribe in our component so that we can consume the JSON from there, and that's why we will convert this subscribe to map. so that we will go through every response every time it comes. We will convert it in a JSON and then return the data. And we still see the squiggly line because this function isn't returning any observable. We just have to add a return in front of this get. So if you add a return in front of it, the red squiggly line is gone. And that's how you create a method that calls to the server and then returns the data. The last thing we need to do here is to get rid of this hard-coded search text and take it as an input parameter. So we will copy this guy, take it as an input parameter, and then get rid of this line. And that's how we will take an input parameter of the search text. We will add it as a query parameter in the last part of this API call, and then we will make an HTTP call. We will get a return from here. And if we save it, we will get an error in the search component because here we take an input parameter to this method, but we are not providing any parameter from this. So this is some goodness of TypeScript, that if your signature doesn't match, it will give you an exception in the code editor as well as during compilation. We will create a property in this class, and that's why we will have a public, and name of the property would be search text, and this would be the search text we will getting from the input text box. And to get the value from an input text box, we have to do few more steps. First, we have to create a onKeyUp event handler for this. So we will get an event named KeyUp, and we will create a method named onKeyUp, and we will pass the event object to this method. And we will save this guy. We will go to the component, and then we will create here onKeyUp, and we take the event as an input, and inside it we will set the value of the search text. So this dot search text would be value of the event dot target dot value. So whatever the value in the event that's happening in the input text bar would be set to this search box. And we also have to change this guy to the click handler of the button. So we will go to the HTML, we will create a click handler for this, and we will type click, and then we will create a method get users, and we will call this method from here. We save this guy. We will go to the component and create another method get users. Now we have to move this call to the service inside the get users. So we'll just take it from there, and then we will paste it here. And we have to pass the parameter. That's why the red is quickly line. So we will pass this dot search text, and then we have to subscribe. If we don't put the subscribe, it will not make the call to the service. So we will do the subscribe, and inside this subscribe we will pass a callback function that will take like the response, and we will use the ES6 arrow function. Inside this we will just console log to the response we are getting. That's what we all need. Now make sure this part is working, then we will worry about the binding to the UI. We'll go to the browser. It should be reloaded by now, and if we type JS and we search, we get the response in two different places. So we are getting this one is in the GitHub service, this one is search component. So far so good. So what we will do now, we will show this result. We'll see there are few properties that returned. One is total count. Let's show the total count first. So we will go to the component, and then when we get this result set, we will set it to a property. We will have the two properties, and the first one would be public type search result, and in the search result we will be just set it here by typing this dot search result, and the value of the search result would be the response. We could have extra properties here if we want, and that would be the search count, and the value of the search count we would set here, and that would be like this dot search count is equals to res dot total underscore count, and we will save this guy. Our next step is to bind this search count to the HTML, and we know how to do it. We will go to the HTML. Below we will have a paragraph where we will bind this to the search count, and we know this is search count, and we'll save it. Now we will go to the browser, and this gets loaded, and we'll type JS, maybe lower this guy a little bit, and we'll hit JS. We will see that 39,000 results is here. And if we want to bind the result here, for example, we have like 30 items, and we can below we can look into the items we are returning, and every item has a login name. We will try to display the login name in the search result. So what we will do, we will go here, and then we will create a list item which would be OL here, and inside it we will create a list item where we will loop through the items, and we have done this before. This is ng4, and inside it we will create a block variable let, and we will say user of search result dot items, because all the profiles is under items of search result, and we will display user dot login. If we save it, now go to the browser. If we have done correctly, but we see an error message, and what it says items of undefined. It cannot read the items of undefined. Why this is happening? The reason it's happening is, in the beginning we don't have any search result. Search result is undefined, and that's why JavaScript is breaking, because it cannot get the values of items from an undefined. So what we can do, we can add a condition here, star ng if, which tells that only run this HTML when you have values of search result, and we will save it. Now we will go to the browser, and looks like it's got reloaded, or we will reload again, and we will see there is no exception, and we can do the search again here. So for example, we search for JS again, and we will get bunch of first 30 users here. Since we get this opportunity to search user, we will use it for our personal interest. So we want to see which of the users has single in their profile. We will type single and hit search. We will get single olf. Oh, how there is the single olf, single x, single flay. We can use it more personal use, because there are 1389 and I just need only one. After showing this UI to my manager, he starts yelling at me. Of course, I didn't show with the single example. I showed it with Angular or some kind of serious text search, and I found 2500 users name, but he still continues to yelling at me because this looks very ugly. So I spent some time to search for some other framework, and I get to know Angular material. So what I did, I went to Google and searched for Angular2 material, and from the search result, if I go to the first link, I will see Angular2 material GitHub page. And if you scroll down, you will see getting started guide. And if I click on this getting started guide, I will see step by step to install Angular2 material in my project. So in the first one, you will see npm install save Angular material. So I will go to the command line API, and I will press Ctrl C to stop current execution, and then I will type as it is npm install and then save at angular/material. And after pressing enter, this will install Angular material in this project, so that I can use all the goodness of Angular material in my current project. The next step in their website is animation. And since in this tutorial we will not worry much about animation, we will skip this part and we'll go to step 3, where it says how you can import Angular material in your project. And to do that, you have to do two things. First, you have to import material module in your app.module.ts file, and then inside add ng module, you have to import material module. Now I will go to the Visual Studio Code, and open the app.module.ts file, and inside this file we will first import the Angular material that we have seen right now, and that would be from at angular/material, and from this module we will just import the material module. When we get the material module in this file, the next thing we will do, we will import material module to this module, and to do this we will type material module inside this import collection. We'll just press comma, type material module. The next step is to get the components from the material designs. I will search again Angular2 material, and then I will see that this is their website, Angular materials. You will see bunch of components here, and we will use a card here, and there are few examples of card here. Maybe we can use something like this, and if you look into the code view sources, this is the HTML. It has some TypeScript, and then it has some CSS. So what we will do, we'll just copy this card, and then we will paste it in our search component, which is here, and instead of this guy we will have card here, and this card would be repeated every single time. And what we will do, we will get rid of like a lot of stuff here, so we will go get rid of this paragraph text, and then instead of card title we will put this user login here. So we will take out this ng for from here, and we will repeat md card for this purpose, and we will use this user dot login as a title of this card, and then we'll get rid this list item. We'll save this, and then we will start running our project by using ng-serve. When this is done, we will go to the browser, and then we will search something again with single, and then click this search. We will have a lot of card here, but with the image is broken, so we will get the right link of the image. If we hit the F12, we will get a failed for the image. This is the broken image. But if we expand the object and the items, every item has a link to the avatar. So what we'll do, we will use user then avatar URL. So instead of the source image, what we will use, we use the avatar image. So we will get rid of this guy, and this would be user dot avatar underscore URL. And we have to change this source property as an attribute binding. So we will just put it in a box bracket, and we'll save it, and we'll go to the browser, and then we will search for again some text like single, and then if you search enter, we will get the image of the user, which is really big size. We can work on this to make it smaller. We will create a CSS class, and we'll give it a name as like a profile image. Now we will go to the CSS of this component, which is search.component.cs, and we will set the profile image class, profile image, and maybe we will give a height of 50 pixel and then width of 50 pixel. We will save this guy and go to the browser. When the browser gets loaded, we will search again single, and then we will hit on this button. We will see the thumbnails and the user's name. We need to card little smaller and put some styling. We'll do some cleanup in this card, so we'll get rid of like card subtitle so that it's little cleaner here. We will also get rid of this card content and the like action, those things. Then we will add some style to this card. So what we will do, we will go to the CSS, and then we will apply some style. I will give some width, which would be 100 pixel, and then I will float them to the left, and then I will give some margin of 5 pixel. I will save this guy, and I will let the browser reload. When browser is reloaded, I will search for married people so that I can exclude them from my connection. Here you will see the card of different user, and this might save your managers yelling for one day. This is all we wanted to talk about in the part 3. We talked about how to create this search component, which include a input text box, a button, displays number of search result that matches with the text, and show them in a nicer way by using material design. We also created a service called GitHub service, and inside this service we used a method to make HTTP call to the server. We also talked with stepchild of Angular 2, which is RxJS, to make this service working the way we wanted. This is the fourth part of this tutorial, and in this part we will talk about how you can create routing in Angular 2 application, and by using routing how you can go to multiple components, and if needed how you can pass a parameter to a route. First we will go to Google and search for Angular 2 routing, and after getting the search result we will go to the first link. In this first link, if you scroll little bit, you will see a lot of contents, and first one is routing import. So how you can import routing from the Angular core module. If you scroll little bit, you will see how you can define a route. So this is the routes from Angular module, and you declare multiple routes here. And to declare a route you need minimum two things. First one is the path. This is the slash URL that you will put in the URL, and this is the component that would be displayed when you go to this path in your browser. And then we have to import the route definition in our module. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and to create routing in this application we will follow four steps. Number one, we will create a separate file so that our route definition is nice and tidy in a separate file. We will just right click this app and then click new file. We will give it a name, app.routes.ts, and then here we will import the route definition from Angular router. We will just type import from at angular/router, and we will bring routes here to declare the route for our application. And then we will export a constant, and the name would be app routes. This would be type of routes which we will define by a collection. In this collection we will define all the definition of the route. If you remember, we have created two components before. One was our circular component, another was search component. So what we will do, we will define path for these two components. The first one would be circular. We will say the path, and the path we will give circular, and then we will define the component. And to define the component we have to import the component to this file. We have done this for million times, so we will just import, and we will import circular component. We know where is the circular component. That's dot circular, and then we will go to circular component ts, and here obviously we will type circular component, and then we will add circular component here. So we have declared the first route for our application. If we type circular in the URL, it will come to this circular component. Since we are in the same place, we will create another route here that will go for the search. So the path would be search, and then we will go to the search component. So the component, we will import the search component same way we did imported the circular. We will import, and then from we will do search, and then search component, and here obviously we will type search component, and the last part is to define the search component here. So we are done with defining the component. The next step would be to import this component in our app.modules file. So we will save this guy, and we will open the app.modules.ts file. In this file, first we have to import the route definition. We'll import the app routes that we just declared. So we will just type here from, and we will import app.routes. It will come here, and the value we want to import is app routes. And if you remember the documents we have seen in the Angular2 website, we have to import the router module and then set the route definition for the route. So we will go back to the code. So we will import the router module from Angular library. So we will type import, and then from we will do at angular/router, and from the router we need the router module. So we will type router module. Then we will scroll down and we find the imports here. So we will do like router module, and in the router module we will say for root, because this we want to set for the root of our application, and we have to pass the router definition, and we already imported this before, that is app routes. Type comma, then we are set for app modules. So we are done with 3 steps. We created our app routes, we imported the router module, and we also imported the our routing definition and then set it. We will save this guy. To know about the last step, we have to go to the documents once again, and in the document, if you scroll little down, you will see that router outlet, so that Angular 2 knows that where it should display the component. This part will make more sense when we are done with this. Let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and this time we will go to the app.component.html. This is the landing component where we have 2 tags. The first one is the h1, the title, and second one is the search component. If we go to the browser, open our website, you will see this is the h1, the title, and this part come from the search component. What we want to do, we want to keep this title constant in every route, and we want to vary this part. So if we go to the circular path, we want circular component to be displayed here, and if we go to the search, we want to display the search component here. And to do this, we have to just change this one. So if we remove this guy, you will see only the title of the website. And here we will add the last part of the routing task. We will add router outlet here. This would be the outlet where all the component would be displayed, and we will close this tag. So now we will go to the browser, and if we come here and type slash circular, we should see the circular component below it. If you remember correctly, this is the circular component, and this comes from your parent component, the title. And if we change the route to search, so we will just change the circular to search, and if we press enter, you will see the search component getting displayed, and all the functionalities should hold here. For example, if we type single here and search, we will get the search single result here as well. So to do the basic routing, we did 4 steps. First, we create the route definition here, where we declared what would be our defined route, and then we go to the app.modules, and then we imported the route definition, as well as we imported the routing module from Angular core, and then we imported and said that you should use this route definition at the root of this application. And the last part we did, we went to the app components and defined where this would be displayed. Now we want to implement the route parameter. What the route parameter will do? It will do based on the click, it will display detailed information about the user. And if you click on this, it will go to the same component but taking a separate parameter. So to do route with parameter, we will first declare a component where we will display this user information. So we will go to our command line. We will stop it by pressing Ctrl C, and we will create a component, ngg component, and we will give it a name as a user component. So after creating this component, we will go to our route definition, and in the route definition, we will import the user component. It would be from user and then user component, and we will definitely import the user component here. And while we will be creating this path, we will have to declare that what would be the variable name of the route parameter. So first we will do as usual, create a path. In this path declaration, we will first tell this is the user path, and then we will add a path parameter. And to do this, we will just add colon and then name of the parameter, and we will give it a name as like user ID. So whenever Angular says that you have a route with user slash something, it will consider that something as a route, and then you have to tell that which component you want to go as usual. So this is user, we will definitely go to the user component. So the setting part is done. Let's visit the UI to see how we want to make it working. And in the UI, you see this is the login name. We want to convert this text to a button so that if you click on this, it goes to the new path. And all these cards exist in our search component. So we will go to the search component, and inside the search component in the HTML file, we have text, and this is the user.login information. What we will do, we will convert it to a button. In Angular material, you can define a button multiple ways. What we'll do, we will simply create an anchor, and for this anchor, we will get rid of this href, add an special attribute of material design which is MD, and then raised button. Inside the anchor, we will use the same binding we used, which was user.login. We will save this guy and then go to the command line API, and to start our application, as usual, we will do ng-serve. When this is done, we will go to the browser, and if we search again, then we will see that all this changed to a raise button. If you click this, you will get a material design effect here, but it doesn't go anywhere. To make it going to the user component with this parameter, we have to do two more things. First, we have to create a click handler in this anchor. So to add a click handler, we will go to the search component.ts. Here we have to do four things. First, we have to create a method. We will give it a name, show user detail, and we will take a input parameter as user. And after creation of this method, next step is to import router from Angular. So we will do as usual import from at angular/router, and we will import here is router. And when we have this router here, third step, we have to create a property. To add a property in this component, we will make it private, and then we will give it a name router with a smaller r, and then we will define the type would be router, and we'll put a comma. We'll have a router property that represents router from Angular library. The fourth step is to read this property and then tell it to navigate, which will be this dot router dot navigate, and this navigate method takes an array which contains different parts of the route. Since we want the user to go to the user route, our first part of this array would be user, and second part would be the variable based on the current user. So we will type user.login. The last part we will do, we will go to the HTML and then add a click handler here. So what we will do, we will as usual type click. This would be the name of the event, and then we will type show user detail, and this user detail will take an input parameter of user. We are passing the user so that whenever you are clicking on this button, the current user of this card is passed to this show user detail method, and inside the user detail method, you will read the user.login that would be passed as a user ID to the user component. So if we have done this correctly, we will go to the browser and test up to this part. So we will go to the browser and search for lazy people in GitHub, and whenever we find all these lazy people, we will click on this. This should take us to the user route with this part as in the URL. So if we click on this, you will see the URL changed to user/lazy whatever the name is, and it comes to the user works. That means the routing with parameter is working for us, but to make it complete, we should load detailed information of this user based on the route parameter, and this is user component. So to load the user information based on the route, we have to go back to the user component and do some work over there. Let's find the user component, which is here, and we will go to the user.component.ts. And first part we need to do here is to read the parameter from the component that exists in the router. And to do that, we have to import stuff from the Angular library. So we will do from, and this would be at angular/router, and from there we will import active route. The reason we want to import active route, because we want to know the current activated route information. And next step is to create a private property in the constructor. So we'll make this private and we will give it a name active route with lowercase a, and then type would be active route. So inside this ng on it, we would like to read the current route parameter, and then we would like to set it to a constant named user ID, so that we can fetch data based on the user ID, and the value of user ID would be this dot active route. To get the snapshot of the route, it is snapshot, not Snapchat. Don't get excited about Snapchat. This is snapshot, and in the snapshot we will get the params, and this params takes a parameter, so we will give the name of the parameter we have passed. If you remember the route definition, we have passed a parameter named user ID, and if you have done correctly, this should get the user ID from the route. To make sure it works so far correctly, we will do a console log, and inside the console log we will just log user ID to make sure we are getting it. So we'll save this guy, and in the browser, so we'll go to the search, and this time we will look for dump people. From the dump people, we will select this dump trackman, and if we click on this, it comes to the user dump trackman. And to check that we get the user ID correctly, we will go to the dev tool, and inside the console tab we already have the dump trackman as a parameter. So we got the parameter correctly, and the next step is to load data from the server by using this user ID. To do this, we will go back to our old buddy GitHub where we created a service. We will open the service, and here we will create a new method, and that would be get user detail, and this user detail will take a parameter of user ID. We will add the return little later, and we will have a constant URL, and this URL I remembered it. This is https and then api.github.com and then slash users. After users, you will just add the user ID, so we'll slash and then add user ID here, and this is the URL we need to do. And then we will make the http call that we have done before, which is this dot http dot get, and we'll pass this URL. The next part would be a map, and inside map we will get the response from the server, and this response will be managed by this callback function, and inside this callback function we will create a constant called user, and the value of this user would be the response. Then we will convert this to JSON, and after this we will just return the user. And the next part is to return observable from this method, which we have done before. Type observable. Since we don't have a strongly typed class here yet, so we'll just type any so that we can pass anything. And the last part, we will just add return from here so that red squiggly line is gone. So we are done with setting our server call. Next part would be going back to our user component and call this service method from there. And to do so, first thing we will do, we will import the GitHub service here, and we have done this zillion times, and that would be GitHub and slash GitHub service, and from there we would like to import the GitHub service. After importing the GitHub service, our next step is to provide GitHub service to the component, and to do that we will add a provider in this metadata. So we'll type providers, and then we will pass the GitHub service. That's very simple. The next step would be create a private property in the constructor so that we can access methods in the GitHub service. We have done this before. We'll follow the same steps here. So we will type private, and then we will name it GitHub service, and the type of this GitHub service would be the GitHub service. That's very simple. We'll add a comma. This part is done. In the next part, we would like to make a call to the GitHub service. So we will type this dot GitHub service, and we will call the get user detail, and we will pass the parameter user ID that we have created before. And after this, we will do subscribe. Inside the subscribe, we will get a response, and to handle this response, we will create a callback function. And inside the callback function, we would like to set the response to a property of this component. So we will declare a public property named user where we will set the response, and to set it, we will just type this.user, and value of it would be the response. Before binding to the UI, we would like to know that what are the information we are getting so that it becomes easier what are the information we would like to see in the UI. And we will do the console log here, and we would like to log this dot the user information. And we are done here. We'll save it, and when you go to the browser, if it's get loaded again, we will search for that dump people again, and from that dump people we will click on this dump trackman, and if we go to this user slash trackman route, and at the bottom we'll see that an object is logged. And if you would like to see what's the detailed information there, we will see there are company name, there are user email, and there is number of followers this person have, and there is a name, this is the logging, and bunch of other information about this user. Now we will go back to our Visual Studio Code, and this time we will go to the HTML, and here we will change the HTML little bit. First we will create a h1 that says user detail information, and below this we will create a div, and inside div h3 that would be binded to the username, so that would be user dot name, and below that maybe we'll put a paragraph tag that will provide the user email, so the email would be binded here, and that would be user dot email, and maybe below that we will tell that how many followers this person have, so we will create a small tag, and inside this we will type followers, and after that we will bind to user dot followers. We'll save this guy, and if we go to the browser, we see an error. And what does this error says? It says inline template error, and it says cannot read property name of undefined. The reason this is happening, at the beginning time when you are loading the page, you don't have user definition, because we set the value of user when we get the response back to the server. So to solve this problem, we will just type star ng if, and that's how we will tell, hey, just parse the below code when you have the value of user. We save this guy, and then we go to the browser. We see that the route currently is at the root. That's why you only see the hello Angular baby. And if we just go to the search route, you will see the search box, and then we search for dump, and we will get the result set as before. If we go to this drop trackman, we'll see the detailed user information, and this is the name, email, and 20 followers. To make sure this is working for the other cases, we will go back to the search once again. This time we will search for Jesus, and if we search the Jesus, we will get this looks like more Jesus. And if we go to this link, we see that this is the detailed information about Jesus, and Jesus has 173 followers, and these people might go to heaven. Rest of you might burn in hell. So we are done with part 4 of this tutorial. What we did, we created bunch of routes, and if we go to the route definition, which is app.routes.th, and you will see that we created 3 routes. One was circular, another was search, and the last one is using dynamic parameter based on the route. This is the last part of this tutorial. Here we will talk about some small stuffs that might help you to debug, release in the production, and those kind of thing. The first thing we will talk about pipes. For example, you are seeing this text as like a lowercase, and you want to make these all upper cases. You can use a simple pipe. And to see it working, we will go to our code editor, and in the email, we will add a pipe here, just simple pipe, and we will tell it to be uppercase, and we will save this guy. If we come back to the UI, you will see that after loading, it's all upper cases. We will look into the other pipes in Angular 2. So we'll go back to the code editor, and we will add a paragraph tag here, and inside this paragraph we will have some text created at, where we will display the date, and we will bind it to user dot created underscore at. And by default, if you look into the UI, you will see it shows a ugly date that's not very pretty. And to make it prettier, you just add a pipe and mark it as a date. And if you come back to the UI after reload, you will see that it becomes more readable date. Next step, we will see that how you can debug an Angular 2 application. To do some simple debugging in an Angular 2 application, you can use a Chrome extension, and the name of the extension is AUZURY. And if you search for Augury Chrome, and you will go to this link, you will see the Chrome extension, and you can add it to your Chrome browser. I have already added it. Now we will go to the website that we have created and open the dev tool. And in the dev tool somewhere you will see Augury, and in the Augury you will see the component structure. If you click on the user component, you will see information about it on the right hand side, where you have the instance provider, you have the current state of your component, and if you like, you can change some of the values here. For example, if you scroll down and this name is Theo, and you change it to Theory, and you press enter, and you come to the UI, you will see that the name of this guy is changed to theory, and you can change something else too if you want. The theory second, and then you enter, it gets updated right away. And beside properties, you will have the injector graph, how components and module are injected to your current component. And if you want, you can know information about the routing tree. Next up, we will see that how we can deploy this to the production. And to do so, we will go to the command line API, and then we will cancel the current execution, Control C, and we will type ng build. If we do that, and this will run the whole project. When the build is done, you can go to the directory where you have the project, and inside it you will see a folder called dist, and this is the file you want to deploy. If you just build by using ng build, it will not optimize your resources. To optimize your Angular 2 project for the production, you need to execute ng build and pass a flag prod. If you do that, when this command is done, you can go to the dist folder again, and you will see like less number of files, and all are minified here and ready for production deployment. So we are done with the fifth part of this tutorial. If you watched this tutorial, Angular 2 for Dummy, up to this point, to fill your tummy with yummy Angular 2, please subscribe to this channel. Otherwise, my mommy will kick me out of her basement.